This week, the Plantagenets.
I do believe I have already mentioned in this fascinating account of my life that people of old broke off bits of me and put them into coffins and graves, and this symbolised everlasting life. Get it? Like me, evergreen? Oh, God, can't keep up. And that continued even into this intensely Christian period, what humans call the medieval period. Although this practice had its roots, another pun, right back in the pagan era, and even though many, many years had passed since I was considered central to Tisbury life, I believe I still played, if I say so myself, a very important part in the everyday life and death of your average Tisburger. And what with the plagues and what not, I'm talking about a lot of death. So, little surprise, then I continued to keep a watchful eye on the comings and goings of all these good folk of Tisbury. We were now entering the Middle Ages, fun for some and grim for many. Historians like to say the Norman period ended with the accession to the throne of Henry II in 1154, and that this marked the beginning of the Plantagenet dynasty. Well, at the time, it did not feel that clear-cut. I mean, I didn't see the sun rise one morning and think, the Normans, they're just so over. For instance, Norman enthusiasm for a sturdy building continued apace. Here, right beside me, between 1180 and 1200, the main part of St. John the Baptist Church was built in the form of a cross, a design typical of the time. Another church, a tad larger, I believe, was soon to be started in a place called Salisbury, but I couldn't have given a twig about that. All these ruling class types were ancestrally Norman. So, even if you wanted to feel modern and Plantagenet, you only had to look up and see a bunch of crusaders galloping by on their way to the Holy Land, or more likely, wounded crusaders on their way to the commandery in Anstey, Wiltshire's first hospital. Did you know that? It still felt very Norman. We all felt very important when in 1246 King Henry III's half-brother became the parson in Tisbury. His name was Aymer de Marcher, and he departed not long after for a higher pay grade when he became the Bishop of Winchester. But for a while there, I would tremble just a little when he'd wander past. Ooh, as a tribute, you understand. I have to say, on reflection, it was quite a busy go-getting time here. By mid-13th century, the Tisbury tithe barn was built, and it was where Tisbury folk paid their taxes in goods and produce. The abbey in Shaftesbury, which was run by a series of abbesses, held sway over nearly everything around here, right up until the Reformation, taking those taxes for the good of the church. Shaftesbury was recognised as one of the wealthiest and most powerful nunneries in the whole of England. You didn't mess with those girls, I can tell you that. The 1300s saw a few happenings that nobody pretended to enjoy, like the Black Death, oh dear, and the poll tax of 1377, which was imposed on at least 281 good residents of Tisbury. Still, progress was underway with the building of Gaston Manor on the High Street, and in 1392 the estate of Wardour was sold to Lord John Lovell by King Richard II, and Lord John then started to build a castle. Utterly infuriating for me, Tisbury's market was held up at the top of the high street, completely out of my line of sight. Part of the cross that now stands quite close to me here in the churchyard originally stood where the market was held. That was where villagers would air their grievances, itinerant friars would preach their sermons, and public notices were given by the town crier. But did anyone ever think to come down and tell me, the ancient venerated you, about the notices and the grievances? Not on your Nelly. All those locals with names like the Rixons, the Turners, the Greens and the Levers saw no point in keeping me in the loop. At this point, Tisbury had everything a thriving village needed, like a blacksmith's, wheelwright's, a candlemaker, a butcher, a baker, and an apothecary, which was the early branch of Brute's. No, it wasn't really. And although there was word of a peasants' revolt in 1381, somehow Tisbury peasantry carried on regardless, and I carried on watching over them.
The Yew Tree Chronicles.